Well, retired U.S. Army Lieutenant and CNN military analyst Mark Hertling knows Mosul firsthand. He joins us now via Skype from Orlando, Florida. How do you think these initial hours, when this assault begins, are going to play out?
What's interesting, Robin, is Prime Minister or President Barzani has already said the operation's about to begin. That's the president of Kurdistan, the Kurdish region. Mr. Abadi, the Prime Minister of Iraq, has said that it won't start until he announces it on television. What we'll see probably within the next 3 to 7 days is continued movement to the towns of Kira. I think you're going to see an attack against another town, Hawija, which is a ISIS stronghold further to the south of Mosul. But then you'll start seeing the surrounding of Mosul from 4 sides. The Kurds will be in the east. I think the Iraqi army and some of the PMU units will be in the south. And there's been Iraqi army units and Kurdish forces to the north and west for the past several months trying to separate Mosul from reinforcements from Raqqa. So you see military operations, a campaign that will start with a siege and a surrounding of this city of 1.5 million. And then eventually, I think within the next several weeks, you'll see the Iraqi counterterrorism forces going inside the city, and it will be a difficult fight. Having been in Mosul several times while I was there in 2007 and 8, and we led an operation against al-Qaeda in Mosul, it is a very cosmopolitan city with a lot of labyrinthine streets, some underground marketplaces. I remember once walking through the Bab al-Tub market and getting lost for several hours because it is so complex. But you're also going to see these tunnel complexes where ISIS is going to fight in the east of the city and then cross the river into the west and really put up a much more difficult fight.
Yeah, I want to talk about that, crossing the river. And you know, as this proceeds over the coming days or weeks, ISIS will retreat and hold out in one particular location. How will that impact in terms of strategy on the ground?
Yeah, well, the Tigris River runs right through the middle of the town itself, and the Kurdish forces will go into the eastern part of the city, but they won't cross over the Tigris into the western part. That will be left up to the Iraqi security forces and the reinforcing Iraqi police. What we're going to have to watch very closely, first of all, is the occupation of the Mosul airport. That will be a critical site that the Iraqi army has to get into, primarily for logistics reasons. They're going to need that airport once they continue their efforts in the city. But there are also 5 major bridges across the Tigris River, and ISIS is going to want to try and destroy those bridges. It will be instrumental that the Iraqi security forces make sure they maintain those bridges and keep them functioning.
And certainly, I mean, we can get into the weeds of what might unfold militarily in the coming weeks, months, as you say, this could take. But there's certainly a lot of lessons to be learned in terms of the post-conflict mistakes that were made in Iraq, particularly by the Americans. What lessons have been learned, particularly in terms of trying to convince the civilians left behind, that they should be okay with whoever decides to occupy the new Mosul?
Well, you struck the chord early on in your opening today, Robin, when you said the humanitarian crisis afterwards is going to be the most critical effect. Mr. Maliki in the past has not done well in providing humanitarian aid, support, governmental institutions to the city of Mosul all the way from Baghdad, which is about 250 kilometers to the south. The critical event will occur not so much the military operations, which will be important, but what happens after. As Ben said, there's between 700,000 and 1 million occupants, citizens in the city of Mosul. The Iraqi government has to get aid to them quickly. They have to establish tents, water supplies, reinstitute electrical and sewage and all the other things that people want in their cities. But then they're also going to have to ensure that the government changes in Mosul and they provide support to the shopkeepers and the families, get the schools back operational. All of this is monumental. And you're right, that was part of the efforts of the American forces all the times I was in Iraq. And sometimes it was not as easy to do as it appears. But the Iraqi government has the money, has the capability to do that now. And that's what will be important to reestablish that bond between that northern city and the city of Baghdad.
Has the capabilities, has the money, but sectarian-wise, there are again complexities here, and that in a way trumps all of that.
It does, but But I think what we'll see in Mosul, there's more of patriotic fervor. When the Iraqi army dissolved in 2014, as Ben said, there was sectarian violence and there was non-support for the military. The military and the police are beginning to regain their trust in the central government. And that's why it's critical that that connection is made. What the people of Mosul see in the next several weeks, if they get the support from the central government, if they feel that this is once again a one Iraq as opposed to multi-factions, you'll see some progress. But Mosul is a very cosmopolitan city. As Ben said earlier, it has Sunni, Shia, Kurdish, Turkmen, Assyrians, Chaldeans, Christians, and in fact, even some Jews are in the city of Mosul. So getting that entire population supported by the government, not only of the city, but the Nineveh province, will be the most important thing we need to watch.